What up, you fluffy bastards? My name is Liquid Blitz, and today we answer a question. After all the significant updates to SMGs in PUBG, which is now better, the Micro Uzi or the Vector? Well, first let's look at the stats, and then we'll look at some side-by-side recoil comparisons, and see just how much the attachments actually affect the recoil of both weapons. And by the way, a couple of the attachments do way more than their descriptions actually suggest. I've put timestamps on the screen just in case you want to skip forwards or backwards. The stats then, starting with base damage, the Vector easily wins right off the bat with 31 versus the Uzi's 26, but the Uzi does pull back with a faster 1,250 rounds per minute. The Vector still pretty fast at 1,100. Now the damage and rate of fire let us calculate the DPS, or damage per second, and that's the real judge when it comes to how much damage you're actually outputting. Now the Vector wins here only just with 568 damage per second versus the Uzi's 542. They both have the same bullet velocity of 350 meters per second, and as for mag size, the Uzi wins with 25 rounds, 35 when extended, and the Vector only has 19 and 33 when extended. And the last stat is another win for the Vector, the reload speed, with the Vector reloading significantly faster than the Uzi, both empty and with ammo remaining. So far, just looking at the basic stats, they're pretty even across the board. As for bullets to kill and time to kill, the Vector actually has a slight edge because the Uzi almost always requires one more shot to kill than the Vector. Now, I'm not going to show every scenario or we're going to be here all day, but just so you get the idea, here are both weapons against level 2 armor, courtesy of the website battlegrounds.party. For both weapons, the left chart shows the number of bullets to kill for every body part, and the right chart shows the corresponding time to kill in seconds. For the most part, the Vector is the clear winner, requiring one fewer shots to kill everywhere but the upper arms and legs. Both weapons are equal with the upper arms and legs, and because the Uzi shoots faster, those are the only body parts where the Uzi actually kills faster. Actually, important bit of trivia, since the SMGs do vastly increase damage to limbs, when a player is in level 2 or 3 armor, you actually do more damage by shooting the arms and legs than you do to the body. So late game, when people tend to be in level 2 or 3 armor, it might be a good idea just to shoot the upper legs and the crotch. Anyway, let's move on to recoil comparisons and see just how much the attachments actually make a difference. Okay, first I felt it was important to do a comparison with no attachments, just to give us a kind of baseline. Besides, when you first land and pick up an Uzi or a Vector, you're not going to have a fully decked out weapon, so it is important to know which is better naked. As you can see, the Uzi is straighter and more predictable. The Vector is a little more random and spiky. Keep in mind the Uzi is only taller here in recoil because it has 6 more bullets than the Vector. Shot for shot, the vertical recoil is pretty much identical between the two. So, naked with no attachments, they're actually pretty even in terms of accuracy. So now let's actually take a look at all the attachments and then do a final recoil comparison with fully decked out weapons. The Uzi can now take a red dot or hollow sight, which has to be the greatest buff to a weapon ever. But, that being said, the Vector can take everything from a red dot all the way up to a 6x scope. By the way, the red dot sight and hollow sights give you 20% faster aiming down sight. Nice to know. Both these weapons can take all 3 SMG magazines and all 3 SMG muzzle attachments. Now, just in case you didn't know the specifics, and boy do I love me some specifics, just FYI, the compensator for the SMG reduces vertical recoil and horizontal recoil by 25% and 20% respectively, and the flash hider reduces it by 10% and 10%. So the compensator is the way to go. Now come the differences. The Vector can equip a grip or a laser sight, and the Uzi can't. Only the vertical, the half grip, and the light grip, not the angled or the thumb. I decided to put their specific stats on screen for you to feast on, because that's just what I do. The best, in my opinion, is the vertical grip, as it gives you a big-ass reduction in vertical recoil and animation kick, and it has no downsides, whereas the half grip helps recoil and recoil recovery a little bit, but it makes the kickback and weapon sway way worse. As for the light grip, that thing is completely useless for anything but long-range tap firing, which you're never going to do with a Vector. The laser sight is a safe choice. It gives you 30% more accurate hipfire, which is nice if you tend to play more aggressive and you like to push people a lot. Lastly, both weapons can take different stock attachments, and they do very different things. The Uzi's stock description claims that it speeds up recoil recovery, which it does, 15% faster. What it fails to tell you is that it also reduces vertical recoil by a further 20%, which is a massive thing to not include in the description. They need to fix that shit. It turns the Uzi from accurate into laser beam. Now, the Vector stock isn't quite as crazy, but it does more things. 5% less horizontal recoil, which it doesn't tell you in the description yet again. 10% faster aim down sight, which makes it faster than the Uzi at aiming, by the way. Sneaky. 5% faster recoil recovery and 10% less animation kick and weapon sway. So, from attachments alone, the Uzi has more recoil reduction, but the Vector has faster aiming and less animation kick, and that's a good thing when tracking targets while spraying. Anyway, let's kit these weapons out with the best attachments and do a final recoil comparison. But remember, this time round, they've got extended mags equipped. Before, the Uzi had 25 rounds, now it has 35. The Vector had 19 and now has 33. So we're expecting the recoil to be more vertically up, higher, bigger. Yes, I know how to speak English. And there she blows! Let's go and plonk those results next to the test with no attachments so we can have a real full-on comparison. The biggest thing of note that I can see is that even with 10 more shots than it had before, the Uzi's recoil with attachments is actually lower than before, and it retains very little horizontal recoil. Keep in mind, a compensator plus the Uzi stock gives you a total of 45% reduced vertical recoil, and it shows. So with attachments, clearly the Uzi is far more accurate than the Vector. The 14 extra shots from the Vector's extended mag do increase the total upwards movement, but only a little bit, and for 14 extra shots, that's a lot, clearly the attachments have worked their magic and overall, I would say, greatly reduced the recoil. It's still got that unpredictable, spiky quality, however. So that's it for this video. Let's do a summary and conclusion. The overall stats are similar, but the Vector has a slight edge in terms of damage and time to kill, especially against higher armor levels. It also has an edge at medium range combat since it can equip scopes up to the 6x scope, whereas the Uzi's limited to the red dot and hollow sights. On the flip side, the Uzi, however, is the most accurate and easy to control, especially when fully equipped. So, the overall question, which is best? Well, it's just opinion, I mean that's all I can give really, but I'd say the Vector is better for more experienced players who've had plenty more practice controlling recoil. And I'd say the Uzi is best for newer players, or simply players who just want a nice, simple, easy to control weapon without having to worry so much about the recoil. Either way, after all the recent updates which have buffed and buffed and buffed the SMGs, both of these weapons can go toe-to-toe with assault rifles at close range. They might even be better than assault rifles, but that's debatable. Like this video if you liked it, like this video if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more similar content, and subscribe to my second YouTube channel if you want to see me do full playthroughs of story and horror games. Oh, and before I forget, I also livestream pretty much daily, but only over on Twitch. There's links in the description to absolutely everything. Liquid Blitz. Out.